All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Back in March, when quarterback Daniel Jones signed his 4 year, $160 million extension to remain with the New York football Giants, there was some optimism that DJ had turned the corner in regards to being a franchise quarterback. But through the first 4 games of this NFL season for the Giants, Jones's critics are going to simply sit back and say, I told you so. Now, after the Giants made the playoffs last year, they have not lived up to expectations so far this season. Through New York's first 4 games this season, their record is 1-3 compared to them being 3-1 a year ago. Now, there are a litany of reasons why the Giants are currently 1-3. Jones is a part of it. He's not everything, but he is a part of it. And for me, one reason why that some people felt that Jones had turned the corner was the fact that he took care of the football last year. He only threw 5 interceptions. But so far here in 2023, Jones has already thrown 6 interceptions, which included that back-breaking 97-yard pick six last night against the Seattle Seahawks. Now, I am not going to heap all of the Giants' problems on the shoulders of Daniel Jones, but I will say he's not the solution either. Now, it's not a slight on Jones, but he's never going to be one of those quarterbacks that's going to put a team on his back and say, you know what, let's go out there and win. He's one of those guys, he needs to be in the perfect situation. And I say that because you got to run the football. You got to have a solid offensive line. You got to, make things happen defensively. And all of these things are situations where they have not come into play for the Giants this year. There are questions about their offensive line. Their running game is in the tank, especially now that Pro Bowl running back Saquon Barkley is injured with that ankle. The defense, they're not creating pressure like they did last year. They're not creating turnovers either. And all of this is factoring in. But at the end of the day, Jones ain't helping things either. But last year was a perfect storm for both Jones and the Giants. You had yourself a new head coach in Brian Dayball, along with a new general manager in Joe Shane, and everybody kind of sat upright, if you will, in their chairs, trying to make the good impression for the new head coach. Jones didn't have his 5th year rookie option picked up by the Giants, so he was playing for a job. Saquon Barkley was playing for a job as well. The Giants had a very manageable schedule. They were able to get after teams defensively. They were able to go out there and beat the teams that they were supposed to beat. It was a perfect storm for the Giants last year. A lot of things have changed. They've been in prime time so far 3 times this season. They're 0-3 in all of those games. Also, all 3 of those contests were against teams that made the playoffs last year, and the Giants have come up short. The offense overall was not looking that good with a healthy Saquon Barkley in week number one. And it's looked even worse over the last 2 games now that he's nursing that bad ankle. You have, and you're going to continue to have questions about the offensive line. Daniel Jones was sacked 10 times last night against Seattle. He's already been sacked 22 times this year. I'll tell you like this, if you get sacked 10 times in a game, that's obviously not a good look for your offensive line. But at the same time, I looked at some of those sacks that Daniel Jones was taking, and some of those were on him as well. You got to have better pocket awareness in year 5 where that blitz is coming from. You got to have better pocket awareness to get rid of that football. The Giants right now, they don't have the same threat of a run game like they did with a healthy Saquon Barkley. On top of that, the Giants really have not played with a lead all season long. They're always coming from behind. I know last night that Brian Dayball, went for it early on their opening drive on fourth down, and they got stopped. They tried to run it, tried to do the little tush push, if you will. And Dayball's figuring, you know what? I got a 6'5", 240-pound quarterback back there. Let me go. Let me take my chances. But guess what? Seattle knows that as well. And then on top of that, you really don't have the fear, if you will, of the run game from the Giants like you did with a healthy Saquon Barkley. So that definitely changes things. Now, I've said this off the record, and I'm going to say it right now. If I'm Barkley, I'm going to take my and I'm going to take my time and come back and try to be as healthy as possible. The Giants didn't want to pay Saquon what he wanted, and at the end of the day, whatever productivity, whatever injuries that he has this year, it's going to be used against him by the Giants or any other team next year when it comes to contract negotiations. He's not going to get the money next year that he was seeking this year. But with that said, you know, the Giants went out there and they gave a multi-year deal to Daniel Jones. And if you're Saquon Barkley, you're going to sit back and say, hey, you took care of him and not me. But at the same time, you look at it and say, again, Daniel Jones is not a guy that's going to be able to put this team on his back. Let's go back to the offseason when it came to him getting that new 4-year deal from the Giants. It took a lot of back and forth between Joe Shane and Daniel Jones's representatives on this matter. And the thing was, I'm not sure that Joe Shane and Brian Dayball were gung ho on doing it. I really feel like they had to be convinced into bringing Daniel Jones back. I totally get it that they weren't the guys who drafted him. I understand that they inherited him with the aspect of, you know what, trying to get the most out of him. And I feel like they got the most out of him last year. It's not to say that Daniel Jones cannot go out there and still have some productive moments in the NFL. I do feel a lot of people drank the Kool-Aid off of his playoff performance last year against the Minnesota Vikings. But again, the Vikings had one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL for 2022, and it showed in that contest. And look at what the Vikings are doing so far this year. You also have to look at the fact that Daniel Jones has struggled mightily throughout his NFL career against the big boys of the NFC East. And I'm talking about the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles. If you look at this Giants team as a whole last year, they struggled against the better teams in the NFL. Again, last year was a perfect storm for the Giants. Last year was a perfect storm for Daniel Jones. It's one of those where New York as a whole, including Daniel Jones, completely overachieved in 2022, and it changed the expectation level for both quarterback and team here in 2023. Now, some are going to say that the Giants should look at a quarterback next spring in the NFL draft if they're going to be picking in the top 10. And of course, people are going to throw the name of the likes of Caleb Williams out there. That right there is an extreme long shot. And I'm going to say that for one simple reason. You look at Daniel Jones's contract, New York does have the ability to escape from under this contract after 2024. He's still got a couple of years left on this deal. But when it's all said and done, nobody around the NFL, especially in this salary cap era, is going to draft a quarterback in the top 10 and have him sit behind a guy for a year like that. Then at the same time, like let's just say the Giants take a quarterback in the first round next year. Daniel Jones has to be traded. And the thing is anybody going to go out there and trade for Daniel Jones at that point? I don't think so, because they're going to know that the Giants need and want to get rid of him. So I'm looking at it like this. I think Daniel Jones is going to be the starting quarterback going forward, at least obviously for the rest of this year and at least to 2024, as long as he's healthy. Now, can Jones and the Giants get things turned around this season? It's going to be easier said than done. The Giants have a very tough schedule coming up. They're in Miami this Sunday to take on the Dolphins, which is followed by a Sunday night contest in Orchard Park against the Buffalo Bills. Again, two more teams from the playoffs last year, another game in prime time, two of the better teams in the NFL. And we've seen this throughout Jones's career in the NFL, as well as the Giants in recent years. They don't do well against the better teams in the league. First things first, regardless of who the Giants are playing, they've got to go out there and start fast. It's too much New York playing from behind every single game. And anytime that you're playing from behind, your offense tends to get a little bit more one dimensional because teams know, first off, you don't have a healthy Saquon Barkley. That's number one. Number two, you got to go back there and pass to win. And Daniel Jones is a guy who is at his best when the Giants are able to run the football because he's able to feed off of that play action. He's able to get, the different routes, whether it's going up top, whether it's intermediates, dump offs, you name it. But at the end of the day, if the Giants are going to be one dimensional like this, Daniel Jones really does not have a shot. I'm going to put some of the blame on Daniel Jones, but at the end of the day, the Giants are just not a good football team right now. People are going to question the offensive line, rightfully so. And at the same time, Daniel Jones still has to have better pocket presence. It's about a quarter of the way through this NFL season for the Giants, but let's see how Dayball, Jones, this offense, and this entire team, because the Giants have to play better. They were able to put more pressure on the quarterback last night. We saw Kayvon Thibodeau get a couple of sacks, but they've got to find a way to start creating turnovers. And then Daniel Jones and his offense have to go out there and protect the football better than they did so far this season. So let's see if the Giants and Daniel Jones can get out of their own way and try to make something of this 2023 season. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. TFX was going on a long time. You're saying the Giants look terrible. They weren't trying. I'll tell you like this. Vince Lombardi, the famous head coach of the Green Bay Packers, one-time offensive coordinator of the New York Giants, always said football is a game of inches. And you look at last night's game. It's always woulda, coulda, shoulda sometimes. But I'll tell you like this: what could have been if the Giants were able to have get that first down on that fourth down on their opening drive? What could have been if the Giants were able to get points? I'm not even talking about a touchdown. A touchdown would have brought plenty of juice to MetLife Stadium last night because those fans wanted to cheer. But the Giants, unfortunately, didn't give them a lot to cheer about. With that said, um, you think about the third quarter. The Giants are driving; they're down 14-3 when Daniel Jones forces the ball, and of course, they've got that pick six, and that really turned things around from that standpoint because you're talking about a 14-point swing. We're talking about going from possibly being down 14-10 or even 14-11 if Dayball decides, hey, let's go for the 2-point conversion to now being down 21-3. That changed the entire momentum of that contest. That took all of the life out of MetLife Stadium as well, because let's just say, for the sake of argument, Giants go out there and score that touchdown on that first drive, go up 7-0. Something they really haven't done all season long. How much more momentum do they have? Because then you're probably going to have a defense that's flying around to the football because they're saying, hey, we can go out there and make us a play and try to get the ball back to our offense. They don't have that juice right now. They had it in that comeback against Arizona in week number 2. But at the end of the day, the Giants aren't a good enough team to fall behind to the good teams like that and be able to overcome that. We saw that in week number 1 when they lost at home to Dallas. The Giants were driving on their opening drive of the game, and the field goal got blocked and it got returned for a touchdown. From there, the floodgates opened up, and you just have to ask yourself what could have been if the Giants had scored. Because again, the Giants are not a good enough team, quarterback included, to overcome those type of situations. And we saw it again last night. And again, when they fell down 21-3, you just knew it was over. This offense has not been good because they can't run the football. And we're seeing how much that Saquon Barkley means to this team. And I said it, when he was holding out over the summer. I said, hey, maybe he takes this into the season and maybe we see how much that Daniel Jones needs Saquon Barkley. And of course, Saquon Barkley sucked it up. He and the Giants agreed to a 1-year deal, but now with him out with the ankle injury, we are once again seeing how important that he is to this offense. He's the leader of this team. Okay. He's the heart and soul of this team. He's the engine that makes this team go. And of course, you still got a guy like a veteran like Matt Breida back there in that backfield, but Matt Breida is not Saquon Barkley. Okay, he doesn't bring the leadership. He doesn't bring the playmaking ability from the running back position either, and it's showing. And until the Giants are able to fix this, teams are going to tee off because that high ankle sprain, he's probably going to be out a couple of more weeks. And even with that, can you really expect Saquon Barkley to go out there and be Saquon Barkley immediately? I'm not sure because talking about a guy on a high ankle sprain, a lot of jump cuts, a lot of spin moves. This is, who Saquon Barkley is. And you're talking about him not having two fresh ankles out there. It's going to be tough sledding for both him and this offense and Daniel Jones here in 2023. Looking forward to your week 5 picks. Yeah, definitely. I'll have them working on them right now. I know it probably broke your heart that I didn't pick the Giants um, last night against Seattle, but at the end of the day, I'm a realist. I'll tell you like that. And at the end of the day, I'm probably not going to pick the Giants again on Sunday. I mean, they're going to be fighting an uphill battle against a Miami Dolphins team on the road that just got embarrassed at the hands of the Buffalo Bills. And you're talking about Miami, where they went from an ultimate high to an ultimate low because they beat the brakes off of the Denver Broncos 2 weeks ago, putting up 70 points. And naturally, you take the football field with a ton of confidence, but they probably had a little bit more confidence than most after that game. And then you look at what happened to them against the Buffalo Bills on Sunday. I guarantee you the Dolphins are looking to get back on track, especially at home, especially at their place. They have the edge rushers to put pressure on Daniel Jones. And again, if you're looking at Daniel Jones, especially in last night's game, he really looked like the Daniel Jones from 2020 and 2021. And if you're a Giant fan, you definitely don't enjoy reminiscing about that version of Daniel Jones. So it's going to be a long season for the Giants. I know, like, again, I know some people are going to want them to go out there and take a quarterback if they finish in the top 10. They'll think about it. But at the end of the day, Daniel Jones is probably going to be the starting quarterback for the Giants again in 2024 due to that contract because I don't see them taking a quarterback that early and just saying, hey, you know what? You sit on the bench for a year. It really doesn't work like that. In a perfect world, the Giants could do something like that. And then since, Daniel Jones would be motivated a little bit more, he could go out there and put up a phenomenal 2024 season and the Giants could trade him and then, just move on to the theoretical quarterback that they take in next year's draft. But at the end of the day, that's just a dream. I really don't see that happening. Knowing the Giants, they're probably going to go out there and try to find a way to boost, other positions on this team. But nonetheless, right now, Daniel Jones is not looking like the $160 million man. TFX, as always, thanks for chiming in. Thanks for the support. Thanks for the love. I'll have those picks out in a couple of days, and you can definitely keep your eye on them. And folks, that's William Martin signing off here on the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast. As always, I'm saying take care, have yourselves a good night, and thanks once again for tuning in. Be well, everybody.